Hey guys, Victoria here and welcome back to my channel. So in today's video, I'll be talking about the biology paper 3 and I'll be giving you some tips on how you can answer biology paper 3. So first of all, I'll be going over the format of this paper. Paper 3 consists of question 1 and 2. There are 2 questions, you have to answer both. It contributes 50 marks in total. So question 1 contributes 33 marks and question 2 contributes 17 marks. If you ask me, I definitely think that scoring full marks for question 1 is easier, that 33 marks is easier to obtain since you don't need to memorize any experiment or apparatus and materials, and you just need to know the full technique. If you know the technique to answer this question, then it is so easy to score the full 33 marks. So I'll be going over each small branch in questions 1 and 2, and I'll be telling you how to get full marks for that. Before you begin to answer question 1, the first thing that you have to do is to identify the 3 variables, which are the manipulated, responding, and fixed variable, MV, RV, and FV. Before you even start answering, you have to identify these 3 variables. So for example, for this question, you can look at the table that they gave you and you will see that the MV is the types of solution, the RV is the length of plant roots 1 and 2, and the FV is the type of plants. So sometimes you have to look at the question. There's a long question that you have to read, and sometimes you have to identify the manipulated, fixed, and responding variable from there, but other times they provide you with a table and you can directly pick out the information from the table, and that is so much easier. So we'll actually proceed into answering question 1. And usually for question 1, the first thing that they will ask you is to tabulate the data, and usually the data will be on measurements. So there are 2 things to remember when it comes to this. So the first thing is to always standardize your answer. So let's say you decided to put the measurements in 2 decimal places, then make sure that you put everything in 2 decimal places. And then the second thing to remember is to always put in the units. So what you have to do is you have to check the table for the heading, and if the unit is not included in the heading of the table, then you are going to have to write that by your own. And you have to write either cm or mm. Make sure that you get the correct unit and you write in the unit. So these are the little things that determine whether you will get the full 3 marks or not. B1 is on observation, and they'll ask for 2 observations. So what you need to include in observations are MV, RV, and the exact value. So usually I'll choose the highest and lowest values from the table to include in this observation. But in this case, as you can see here, there are only 4 values, so you're going to have to include everything. So for observation 1, the answer could be, in solution A, the length of plant root 1 is 4 cm and the length of plant root B is 5 cm. And then the second observation would be, in solution B, the length of plant root 1 is 3 cm and the length of plant root 2 is 5 cm. These are just assumption values to give you an idea. P2 will be the inferences based on your observation. So you don't need to copy back your observation again, but you do have to mention your observation comparatively. So for example, for this question, you're going to say that in solution A, the length of plant roots are longer because, instead of mentioning the exact values like 3 cm or 4 cm or whatever, you just have to mention that it is longer or shorter. Because why? And for this question, the answer will just be because in solution A there is complete knobs solution. So you just have to refer to the question in order to get the answer for this inference. Usually the answer for inference will be in the question in itself, but other times it will be from your basic knowledge of biology. It will be in the syllabus though. C, you have to tabulate the data, and they will be asking for the variables and the methods to handle the variables. So from the beginning itself, we have already listed out the 3 variables, so you are just going to fill that in. And then for methods to handle the variables, let's say for MV, we have the types of solution. So the method to handle the MV will just be to use different types of solution. Your keyword here is different. And then for RV, the RV is the length of plant root 1 and 2. So your method to handle will be to measure and record the length of the plant root by using a ruler. So you have to mention 2 things here. First, you're going to mention the action, which is to measure and record. Don't write measure or record. Like, don't either write measure the plant root or record the plant root. You have to write measure and record. Both are keywords. And then the next thing is you have to mention the tool that you're using, which in this case is a ruler. Remember to mention that. And for FV, the FV that we have is the type of plant. So you're going to write the method is to use the same types of plants. And the keyword here is same. D is on hypothesis, and you need to include 3 things in your hypothesis. So you need MV, RV, and also their relationship. So in this case, your answer would be in a complete knob solution, the growth rate of maize plants is higher than in an incomplete knob solution. That is your answer. In most cases, the way to write the hypothesis is just to write the higher the MV, the higher the RV, or something similar to that. But there are some cases like in this question where you can't use that. So you need to know how to write the hypothesis as well if you can't use the higher the lower method. So the way to do it is to compare between complete and incomplete knob solution, as the way we do in this question. In E1, you are asked to construct a table for the average length of roots, and it is very easy to score the 3 marks for this because you already know the MV and the RV. You just have to be careful when you're doing the calculations, and also remember to include all the correct titles and units. Units are so important. Remember to include units for this. Next is to draw a bar chart or any other chart that they ask you to draw, and usually they will provide you with what to write on each axis in the question itself. So for example, if they say draw a bar chart on the growth rate of maize plants against the types of solution, then you would know that the growth rate of maize plants is on the vertical axis and the types of solution would be on the horizontal axis. So it is so easy to score full marks for this as well. Just remember to include the labeling and the units. Units are so important, and also make sure that your graph takes up at least 50% of the paper. Like I would say 75% of the graph paper, the graph that they gave you. And then lastly, if you're drawing a bar chart, you have to make sure that your bar charts are equally spaced. F is to state the relationship between the growth rate of maize plants and the types of solution based on your graph. Explain your answer. To answer this, you would say that in complete knob solution, the growth rate of maize plants is higher because, okay, and to get this reason, you have to refer back to the question. So I'll place a table here, and you will see that in complete knob solution, we have phosphates, while in an incomplete knob solution, we don't have phosphates. So that is the reason that you are going to give. So in a complete knob solution, the growth rate of maize plants is higher because phosphates can stimulate the growth of maize plants roots. And that will be your answer. For the reason, you will have to refer back to the question and identify any differences in that question or any hint that they might have given you to include that in your explanation. H is on operational definition, and to get full marks for operational definition, you need to have the definition shown by RV and affected by MV. So for example, for this question, they ask for the operational definition of growth. So you are going to say that growth is the change in the length of maize plants, which is something that you can measure from the experiment. Okay, so growth is the change in the length of maize plants affected by the types of solution, shown by the length of maize plant roots. That is your operational definition. You need 3 things. One is the definition, which can be measured. The second thing is shown by, and the third thing is affected by. H is a prediction question, and for prediction questions, you have to mention whether a value is higher or lower than a certain value. So for example, the length of maize plant roots is more than 0.3 cm per day because more phosphates are present to stimulate the growth, and that's it. It's actually pretty easy to score full marks for prediction questions. I is a question that I used to like very much, and it is to categorize things, and the answer will be right here. There is nothing much that I have to say for this question. Usually it's like a bonus question. Now we'll move on to question 2, which contributes 17 marks in total, and this is the sample question that I'll be using to explain this question 2. And a lot of information are presented to you, but what you really need is this sentence right here, to study the effect of enzyme concentration on the activity of salivary amylase. This particular sentence will get you a lot of marks, so once you identify this sentence, just highlight it. And next we'll move on. There are several things that you need to write for paper 2, and we have a list. But the first one is the problem statement. So what you need in the problem statement is the MV, RV, and the relationship between them, and also a question mark. The sentence to remember is how does MV affect RV? So applying to your question, your sentence that you have to write is how does the enzyme concentration affect the activity of salivary amylase? Question mark. That question mark is super important here because it is a problem statement and you are proposing a question, so make sure to get that question mark in. Next, you will need the hypothesis, and there are 3 things that you need to include in your hypothesis. We have the MV, RV, and the relationship between them. So for this question, your answer would be the higher the enzyme concentration, the higher the rate of activity of salivary amylase. That would be your answer. Super simple. Next up, you will need the variables, which are the MV, RV, and FV. So you're just going to list that down. That is like a guaranteed 3 marks to get. And as you can see, the first 3 bullets all go back to that one sentence that you highlighted back then. So it is so important to identify that one sentence and take note of it. Next is the materials and apparatus, and to answer the material and apparatus, you need to draw the diagram, or at least to visualize the diagram so that you know what are the things that you need for this. And usually when I'm reading the experiment, I will just try to memorize the diagram instead of just all the steps, because from the diagram itself you can obtain marks from apparatus and materials, and also you can able to visualize the steps. Try to list down as many apparatus and materials as you can remember. And then next we'll move on to procedure, and this is the complete list of procedure for 3 marks. And all I have to say is that those are a lot of things to write for just 3 marks. I do have some tips on how to memorize for these steps, but now we'll move on to the last bullet, which is on the presentation of data. So for this last bullet, you need to draw tables with the headings and the units. Units are super important here, and you need to fill in the values for MV, but for RV you can just leave it blank. So I would say that it is quite easy to obtain 2 marks for this table. So a mini conclusion about biology paper 3 is that the technique of answering this paper is so much more important than memorizing the experiments. Like let's say you have 0 clue about the experiment, but you can get the technique right, then you're going to lose 6 marks. 3 marks for material and apparatus, and 3 marks for the steps. 6 marks only, and you can still get 44 over 50, which is really amazing. I definitely think that you should read through every experiment and understand the concept behind it, and really just understand the experiment. But when it comes to memorizing, I would just say try your best. I have 2 tips when it comes to memorizing experiments, and the first one is to actively participate in your lab sessions. You're going to be an active member in the group, and you're going to get the apparatus, set up the apparatus, get the results, all that, because when you're involved, it is so much easier to memorize the experiment when you're reading it later on. Just be an active participant in your lab sessions. And the second tip that I have for you is to focus on diagrams. So in paper 3, sometimes they don't even award marks for the diagrams, but if you're trying to memorize the experiment, then I would definitely recommend that you memorize the diagram, because once you get an idea of the diagram, you can get the marks for material and apparatus, and once you see the diagram, you will have a rough idea of how to set it up. So definitely try to memorize the diagrams. But then it is clear that the answering technique for paper 3 is so much more important than memorizing experiments. You need to be clear with all the answering techniques, and you can get at least 46 marks out of 50, which is definitely very high for paper 3. So that's all for today's video. I hope that this video has managed to clear your doubts about the answering techniques in paper 3, about which things are more important than which. And if you want me to do paper 3 videos for chemistry and physics, remember to like this video and comment down below to let me know. That's all for today's video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!